Welcome to this week's blog, video blog, vlog. The presentations here are very often, although they are many and various, they're very often spontaneous responses or even spontaneous monologues to you. The purpose of these video blogs is to expound a psychospiritual teaching. Purpose of these video blogs is not to sell you anything or to persuade you to embark on courses at the Centre of Awakening or any of the other offerings, or buy books or read articles or anything like this. Purpose of the video blogs is simply to communicate. And I say that because we have incited a dialogue on various social media networks, and some rather interesting ideas are being thrown around about inauthenticity and the presentation of the video blogs. And for good or ill, they're not overly professional. It simply involves me setting up a laptop screen and talking to it. So I just wanted to make firstly the point that I myself, Reverend Robert Meir, and people associated with the Centre of Awakening are not overly commercially minded. We do want to highlight the offerings of the Centre because we think they're beneficial. But we're not by any means attempting to become millionaires by selling you things. We're just not interested. It's just never... I've been blessed to meet other people who shared with me this orientation, which is variously one of service or of cultivation of wisdom teachings, or of the pursuit of devotion, in any case psychospiritual unfolding in the modern era. So that's what we're about. We're not about hard sell or soft sell or peddling and anything of the kind. So if you can possibly, or if you're one of the critics of the sometimes not overly successful probably and scrappy video blogs that we presented, I apologize. I mean, I would do something different with your time. One of the most important points to come out of the discussion, and a very interesting one, and I think I can cover it very briefly to end this present communication, is comes really from the idea that there's no incremental or progressive spiritual method or path that will lead you to God, that will lead you to the divine. Now, in the previous presentations of 3 stages of awakening, which is central to my model and to the psychospiritual teachings that are offered through the Centre for Human Awakening, the idea seems to have come that this is necessarily a progressive spiritual path, and it's been pointed out that Barry Long, Krishnamurti, to name but 2, have said, and to use J. Krishnamurti's words, truth is a pathless land. In other words, there's no method or no incremental progressive path or discipline that will lead you to God. It's outside of that way of thinking, you see. Therefore, implicit in that is, what's with the 3 stages thing, and what are you talking about, and did you miss this basic wisdom, Richard Harvey? And my response is, no, of course I didn't miss this basic truth. There's many truths that were spoken and taught up to 100 years ago in the West, when spiritual teachers came from the East. You don't have to be Eastern to be a spiritual teacher, of course. But masters came from the East, or travelled the world, and Krishnamurti, of course, had the unfortunate legacy of having been declared the world teacher, in essence the world guru, which he rejected, of course, famously in the dissolution of the Order of the Star, and set about promoting this idea that truth is a pathless land and gurus are necessary and teachers and what have you are unnecessary, and of course in a sense was an example of the very thing that he repudiated, because people went to see him or listen to him, and of course continue to. So there's a dilemma, or there is a difficulty in being a guru or a spiritual teacher who repudiates the title or the role, or says it's not necessary, and yet is teaching something. In the 3 stages of awakening, it's important for you to know it's a psychospiritual way. And those of you who think that I've missed the point of truth is a pathless land need to understand perhaps that the first stage of awakening is all to do with psychology. Second stage of awakening is more or less all to do with a higher psychology, or an unrealized psychology, or should we say a human psychology that builds on the ideas of self-actualization, that was Abraham Maslow, or individuation, that was C.G. Jung, and many other similar ideas that stemmed from the wholeness of the individual realizing their potential and capacity and true or higher destiny. Now, the third stage of awakening, which perhaps most concerns those who are pointing to this idea of progressive methods to truth, is involved with sadhana or spiritual discipline. And at that point, the teachings from the Center for Human Awakening, my psychospiritual approach, is not progressive and incremental. It's nothing to do with that. Truth is indeed a pathless land, and the third stage of awakening is indeed not concerned with attainment or getting somewhere. Now, you know, in an 8-10 minute blog, or 5 minutes, or even 50 minutes, we can only touch briefly on these things, and I know it's difficult because, you know, I've read throughout my life and considered different teachings, and in the end, if you're going to really look into something, you have to take a little bit of time. It's just how it is. You have to look at the teachings, you have to listen to talks, discourses, satsangs, perhaps read books and what have you, to really get an understanding. I've read many books about and from Krishnamurti, and it gives me some understanding, but I'm aware there's more books that I haven't read, so maybe I don't know everything or so much about Krishnamurti. If you want to know something about the 3 stages of awakening, I suggest you look at Your Essential Self, which you can get on the get to from the books link on the Center for Human Awakening website, and take a look at it. It's you know, it's going to cost you a few bucks, and it's going to take a few hours to have a look at, but at least you get some idea, if it's of any interest to you, about the meeting of psychology and spirituality. And for those people who have offered the idea that I've missed the point because truth is a pathless land, let me agree. Truth is a pathless land. Therefore, third stage of awakening, the spiritual period of sadhana or discipline in a human life, is not concerned and not remotely oriented towards progress or attainment or path working or climbing a ladder or how long have we got?